Okay, here we go. A couple of the quick announcements. We have D&D games running at the back. We have 2 games. First one already in progress. Second one is at 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock, and you can sign up and play if you'd like. If you've never played before, the table in front of it is run by D6 Cafe, an amazing bunch of people, beautiful cafe, games cafe. They're running a small skirmish style game, and you can plop down, play. They're doing like anywhere from 2 to 3 of them an hour. So that's great. If you've never played, if you have played, that's fine too. So go and jump in. I want to do a big thank you to Fenris Workshop. Fenris is incredible. They, when you guys came to the door, you got the little coupon pack from them, a $10 for their store. So great, some really cool stickers. They really hooked us up. They did a bunch of stuff for our mini painting competition that comes up a little later this afternoon. If you're interested in that, sign up. We're going to have like up to 30 people, half hour to paint a mini, and then you'll be judged. Free to enter. You get the mini, you get the paintbrush, you get the palette, you get a paint pot from Fenris to take home, and you might win one of the coveted trophies. There's 2 of them, and then another paint pack from Fenris. They hook us up. The trophies were done by Jim, Epic Jim on the end here. Jim's holding the painting competition, and Jim's my counterpart on 13-Sided Die for our podcast. So. Yeah, that's kind of where things are going with that. Once again, if you want any snacks, there's snacks over on the side. Everything's $1 for chips, pop, water, whatever. Help yourself. Pay at the front desk. If you want something beyond that, Stoop Cafe, it's a block and a half away. They do really nice coffee, sandwiches and stuff. Very good people there. You can do that. And parking, I want to mention that again. If you are parked, parking lot's cool. The street's fine as long as you're not on the north side of the street, because that is residential and you could get ticketed. 8th Avenue over there is totally fine as well. Okay? So there you go. That's just some stuff. If you have any questions or need anything, find somebody with an orange lanyard and they'll help you out. Okay. My name's Sean. We've talked earlier. I'm the idiot that put this together. And it's going really well. I just can't believe how many people are here. Thank you so much to everybody. It means a lot. I have a booth over there. If you are interested in buying anything, you can surely do that. We do also have merch at the front too. Our friend here, Friendly Mike, give me one of those, put up your hand. Mike is the amazing artist that's done our event poster, everything. All the artwork is his, and he's an amazing, amazing tattoo and artist. Mike's going to be talking later this afternoon as well. So that's kind of the beginning. I'm going to talk to you guys about crafting, making terrain. I'm a foam crafter, a foam smith, so to speak. And Chris, where are you? Chris Rappel, that gentleman right there, put up your hand, you fool. This gentleman and his brother John, I've known these fools since high school, 40 years ago. Much like these 2 gentlemen over here, we've continued playing for 40 years, this foolish game. It brings us together. It keeps people like that close to me, where a lot of other friends from high school, I never see them. But I still see these guys, we still play, and that just means so much. So it's an important thing. It's not just a silly game where you're rolling dice. It's about relationships, friendships that last forever. So the game for me expanded. It's gone bigger and bigger and bigger. I managed to get away from my dusty old job and semi-retired a few years ago, and I do this full time. I make terrain. I sell stuff around the world. I was fortunate enough to actually sell something to Joe Manganello, who has in his house a crazy big Dragonlance into the last home that I made for him, which is insane. He direct messaged me out of the blue. It was the weirdest thing. Have a movie star message you. That was an amazing project, and it was great to get to know him. But that's the journey you can go on with this stuff. The world is so wide open, you can do anything. Foam crafting is such a great thing to get into. Mini painting is amazing. Foam crafting is its kind of, brother. So the thing I always say is that the materials, it's so cheap to get into doing foam crafting. So this bad boy is a piece of insulation foam. It's found a lot of times in houses in flooring. Okay, this guy is 8 foot long, 2.5 feet wide, I can't remember, and this is 1/2 inch thick. It does come in different thicknesses. The thinner it is, the more dense it is. The thicker it is, it gets a little spongier and softer. There's an ongoing argument with the gentleman on the end, Epic Jim. He believes the blue stuff by Dow Chemicals at Rona is better than the pink stuff, which is made by Owens Corning at Home Depot. Boo, thank you, yes. The blue stuff is spongier. This has got better for holding texture. And you know what? You get the Pink Panther. Who doesn't want the Pink Panther? And when you make something epic, like some crazy big villainous castle, don't you want it pink? Like, that's so great. This stuff is the cheapest material you can buy. This is $15 at Home Depot. Can you imagine going and buying something like this at Michael's, which is a great place, or you would pay so much more for materials in those places, but this is so cheap when you go and get it at somewhere like that. So this is your product you want to get. And from this, you can make anything. One second, let's see if I can do this without breaking anything. So the braziers are sitting on top of the pedestals. Pedestals made completely from pink foam. They weigh nothing. The funniest thing is I make stuff like sometimes big war hammers and things like that. People come to my booth and they pick it up and I always see them do this because they're expecting it to weigh a lot, and it weighs nothing. The stuff's light as anything, which is great for shipping. But that's the whole thing. You can do anything with it. It's such an amazing product. So we talked about texturing it, and that's the whole trick. It's ability to make it look like something it is not. And so for you guys to do crafting at home, you buy the cheap foam. I pretty much guarantee you almost all the other tools I'm going to talk about right now, you have in your house right now that you could be doing this kind of work. Okay? A cutting mat, you probably have a cutting mat. If you don't, a lump of old wood will work. Anything just to be able to cut down on. Metal ruler, don't want to cut a plastic one, so you need a metal ruler. This is a fancy schmancy glue gun, but you can use any glue gun. A cheap one from the dollar store is totally fine. It's your best item to be gluing the pieces together. Utility knife, okay, for cutting the foam with your ruler. Smaller X-Acto knife to do some of the more detailed work. I didn't even cut myself because I don't have my glasses on. Here's one of your magic pieces. This guy here is a wire brush, okay? You can get brass brushes that work fine too. Brass brushes are used a lot by machinists when they're cleaning stuff, right? Spark plugs, things like that. I bought a pack of these at the dollar store for $3.50, and there's like 4 of them in it. This amazing little wire brush, when rasped on our product, makes it look a wood grain like you wouldn't believe. And if you guys want to stop by the booth anytime afterwards, have a look, you'll see some of the wood grain effects with it. It is unbelievable how you can make such amazing wood grain with it. And once painted, so now this is where we talked about our brother or sister, the mini painters. Mini painters, when you're doing mini painting, the thing that gets you the best job is the texture on your mini, the layers. They're three-dimensional, right? So you're working with that. If you're doing any dry brushing effects, you can hit the higher sections. That's what you want to do on terrain. You want to make layers and texture. The more texture you put into your work here, the better the paint job's going to be when you get there. You don't have to make it look like wood by painting wood grain. The wood grain's there. Rasp it up, paint it dark, dry brush some light grain on top of it, and it looks like wood. Done. So simple. Tinfoil ball. You all got tinfoil at home, I guarantee you. Tinfoil ball crumpled up into a hard ball, rolled. This is how I work at home. I do this all. I stand vertically and work like this. Rolled onto here will give an effect that looks like stone. All those pillars were hand rolled with a tinfoil ball before we came here. Like, they were terrible. But that's what it was. And when you paint, again, black base, dry brush a couple of light grays on it, and then boom, it looks like it is stone. Okay? Next thing, once it's been painted, I'm a big fan of environmental stuff, so it has a lot of greens, browns, splotch, technical term, splotched or splodged onto it, just to give it a lived-in old world type feeling. The top of the pedestal is a thick 2-inch foam, and the sides of that has got kind of like a variegated effect. You could do it with a knife, but then once you kind of go beyond the basic tools, you can step up into some hot wire products. There's a handheld hot wire. You just go back and forth on it and cuts it. There's a table that you can get, a Proxxon table that has, again, a wire in it. You can cut with that. Those are nice to haves. They'll help you. They'll make things faster, but they're not a have to. These basic tools here are all you need. I didn't mention the pencil. Pencil's always good. A lot of times lines are done by taking your X-Acto knife, a thin stroke across the foam. Pencil works as a bevel, and you bevel that line out. So if you guys see the tiles I have on my table, I've got a large 10 by 10 tile, measuring out checkerboard of 1-inch size squares, running the pencil through it, done. It's that simple. Texture, texture, texture. I have a Patreon group where I teach people how to do this stuff, and I'm always saying to them, texture, texture, texture. The more texture there at the time you're making, the less work it is after the fact when you're painting. And you'll thank your future self will thank your past self for putting the texture in there. Because you're not having to draw a texture, it's already there. Like I said, glue gun is your best item to be gluing stuff together. For larger things and some of that, I am also using some other glues, like No More Nails is a product that LePage has. It's kind of a white, it's almost like caulking. It is amazing how much it glues. Stuff like that can be used as well. That's kind of the background for it. When I'm building terrain, I'm also thinking line of sight. I want to be having a table. I'm thinking of my players. When I'm making terrain for a game table, it's not about what it looks like so much. It's about how it plays. Because I want the players to have an experience. If I'm making a piece of, a diorama for somebody that's going to sit on a shelf, different story. Very much in a scale, very much into the look, making sure it nails it. For game stuff, I want to do it, I'll oversize my buildings. Like if you have a look, I have an inn there, it's a 3-story inn. It's way too big compared to the minis, but I have it so you can take the top off, you see the second floor, it's open and flat, no walls, so everyone can see it, and it's made to be on a 1-inch scale, 1 inch equals 5 feet, and I have enough room for players to move around in it. So I'll oversize things for that reason. It just means you have to have a little bit more space to store and space on the table, but that works really well. That's kind of the basics of it. It's really not hard. It's super cheap to get into it. Like I said, a sheet of foam like that, when you go to Costco or Rona, make sure you bring a large ruler and a knife to cut it, because it probably won't fit in your car. Probably won't fit in the back of your truck. So you'll see a bunch of us idiots who do this in the parking lot. You can score it, you can snap it, snapping these sheets in half and then stuffing in. I have like contractors walk past me looking at me just like shaking their heads like, what is this idiot doing? It's like, well, I'm not putting it in a floor. It's all good. It's a different kind of floor that I'm using. So anyways, that's the stuff. The rest of the tools, like I said, you probably have them all in your houses right now. Be bold. Don't be afraid of doing it. The thing to remember is that we look at kind of the idea of Dungeons & Dragons medieval history as being decrepit and old and destroyed. I rewatched Conan the Barbarian the other day. I usually watch it every 6 months or so. And something struck me is that a lot of the buildings in Conan were done as newer looking buildings. They're not in ruins. They're quite nice looking. Anything we put on our table tends to always be old, beat up, and in ruins. So for that reason, lean into that. I have players that say, oh, if you've got a part of it that's chipped out or something, it's battle damage. Make up a story. Why is that hole in the side? Why did that thing break? It's battle damage. Don't worry about it. So, okay, that's enough of me talking about it. I'd like to ask anybody if anybody's got any questions or want to ask me anything about what I do, about what I build, what I do stuff. Gentleman right there.
So I'm relatively new to terrain and I struggle especially with building. Do you have any tips for getting walls specifically that look good? Yeah. But are also easy to make up?
The question by the gentleman there was making walls and different ways of making walls and things to do. For me, for walls, there's a couple of very different specifics to do. Obviously with foam, you can make your wall, think of it as if it's almost like a floor, and you can make your brick pattern, again, light score with the X-Acto knife, and you go and kind of take your pencil and be able to enlarge those grooves a bit more, and you can make a brick pattern on it, okay? Tinfoil ball, roll it all out. And that's a good look. I've done that many, many times. You can buy rollers, right? Shifting Lands is a place that sells rollers, and you can roll the texture. It's continuous brick, and you roll it right onto it. That's another way of doing it. The nicest way, the longest way, is hand make your bricks, okay? Small bricks. Get a container, Tupperware container, fill it with rocks. Put your bricks in there, shake the hell out of it. It's super loud, do it outside, and then that will texture your bricks for you. Then make a faux wall, lay it down flat, and start applying your bricks to it. Don't use a hot glue for that. For that, use some kind of glue. You can use wood, PVA glue. LePage makes a really good carpenter's glue. It's a quick dry glue. It's 15 minutes and it dries. So it's faster than your wood glue, the white glue that takes longer. Put that down and individually place each brick. Make your bricks some vertical, some horizontal. Try and do different sizes. A brick this big and two that go on top of it that take up that space. Doing all those different things will give a texture, and if you can, also make your bricks different depths. So coming out of the wall, they're different levels. Texture, texture, texture. Then when you paint it and you dry brush it, it's going to look amazing. It's more work, more time, but it looks incredible, okay? Those to me are kind of your 3 different ways of doing a brick wall. And then there's different ways of making them stand, and you make them modular and all that kind of stuff. But for texture and the look of a brick wall, that's kind of the ways. Roller is the fastest, drawing it second, individual bricks the third. Individual bricks looks beautiful. I'm working on a water mill right now for a client. You click the button and the water wheel spins, and I've done individual bricks on it. It looks beautiful. It took a lot of time, but it does look so much nice. Every time I do it, I'm like, why don't I do them all this way? Then I remember it took hours and hours to do it, and that's not why. But yeah, that does that help?
Yeah, that does. Thank you.
You're welcome. Keep going. It's an amazing craft. Make sure you get my information if you have any questions. I'm Aardnor Minis on Instagram. Feel free to message me. I'm more than willing to help people with ideas and stuff like that. Okay. Anybody else with a question? That gentleman there. Thank you. Take care, Chris. Thank you, buddy. Like I said, like that, man, I can still get emotional. Like, I've known that guy for years, from this silly game. And that silly game, like, it has given me so much in my life. To see this is crazy. Crazy. I'm not going to look at Mike because he'll make me cry. Yeah, any other questions? Yes, John?
Do you have any tips for making individual bricks without socks on? Yeah.
So the gentleman mentioned individual bricks, and he mentioned the word Proxon. So a Proxon table is an amazing product. It's a flat deck table. You have a fence on it, much like you would with a, what's the wood cutting tables? Like a, thank you, table saw, where you have a fence and you can run your stuff down table saw to cut strips and stuff. Proxon table does that. It has a fence, a wire, and when you turn it on, it cuts the foam really nicely. It was mostly used by architects when they would build structural models of their homes that they're designing. That's kind of where it came from. Amazing to use, so fast, fantastic. But if you're doing it with a knife, you can still do it. And for me, the goal is to think of the size of your bricks and then get a bar, cut a bar out for that size of the brick. And then, much like cutting cheese, just start slicing off the bricks. We mentioned earlier, different thicknesses of bricks is good because when you put the different thicknesses on, it gives a different texture of thickness coming out from the wall. So don't be pedantic and start measuring every brick out. Cut them, just eyeball them, but make them so you can cut them kind of like, and just back and forth carefully. Keep your blades sharp. That's the most important thing, you know, nice sharp blades. But that's a way of doing it. A second way is to take a piece and you can kind of carefully trim off a long piece and then kind of cut them out from that as well. I kind of like the method of cutting cheese, basically going through it like that. That seems to work pretty good. Is that helpful? Good deal. Yes?
That technique also works for roof tiles.
That technique also works for?
Roof tiles. Roof tiles, okay.
So roof tiles, if you guys have, again, look at the table, you'll see the roof tiles, the shingles on top of the building. The ones I used to make in the early days were made from cardboard boxes from cereal. And I would take them and I would just sit there with scissors and I would cut each like strips and then make like individual shingles out of them. Great way to go. It looks okay, but you don't get the texture of wood. To do those ones, again, Proxon table is is the hero, and I'll explain how to do those with a Proxon table and then quickly on things. How we doing for time, guys? What time is it? 25 after? Okay, I'm getting pretty close. So for those, I would make a strip about an inch, inch and a half, okay, of that thickness. And then the first thing I would do is I would go on the hot Proxon table and I'd go back and forth very quickly, making kind of like a variegated feel, and that goes across the front edge of the shingles. Next thing I'll do is I'd go in and cut back and forth, cutting notched V's out of it to give the idea of between the shingles. Again, I'm thinking old and weathered, so I want a pretty deep V. I want it to be very distinct. Then once I've done that, I'll use the fence, put it on the Proxon table, and I cut like shavings, slivers off it, try and get it really thin. And then I glue them down, and I try and look for different ones. You can also rotate your thing when you're slivering it so that you're getting two different versions of it. That's what I would do when I'm doing it that way. If I don't have a Proxon table, I would try and do a similar thing. I would go through and I couldn't go too long, but I could do all what I said. You can make a bit of a variegated edge. You don't have to have that, but you could also do it with a wire brush. You take the edge and brush it really good. Then you cut the notches into the thicker piece and then carefully slice them off, right? And that's the thing that would be a little harder to slice them off. But if you did smaller ones like this, you could get it and you could certainly do them. That's, in all honesty, that's where the ProXON table is a king. It's making things thinner. So if you don't want your walls half-inch thick, you can make your wall, run it through there, cut it in half, and you've minimized the size. That's the winner of the ProXON table. All those buildings that I make, I do start usually though with foam core. So cheap foam core from the dollar store, $2 for a piece of black foam core, black paper, black foam inside. Super easy to cut up, and I mock up the building out of that, and then I clad it with thinner pieces of foam because I'm using a ProXON table. That's my method. But yeah, you can kind of go from there. I hope that's a little bit helpful. Shingles are tough, and they take a ridiculous amount of time. Even with a ProXON table, I'll spend days doing shingles on a project. Like, they just take a long time. And then once you're also hand scraping them with the wire brush before you slice them to get the grain texture of wood on there. But they look really, if you can take the time, they look really good. Like everything in life, if you take the time to do it properly, it's good. It's hard to take the time sometimes. Anybody else? We could probably do one more, and then that would be probably me done. That gentleman there, you look familiar. There's a lot of amazing people here. That's Kyle. Kyle's a member of my D&D game. Behind my table right now, there's 2 members of my D&D game. I got amazing support from my players. And like I said, you saw Chris, who's I play with in another game. So it's an amazing, amazing world. If you're interested, you can check out Aardnor Minis on Instagram. I have tons and tons of pictures. If you want to go beyond that, I do have a Patreon site where I teach people how to do this. We have people around the world, Netherlands, Germany, Mexico, people from all over, and we share, we help each other, and I've got tutorials, about 200 posts on how I do what I do, and I'm available to chat with anybody about that. So that's kind of my whole thing. So thank you so much for coming. We have a lot more talks coming up and people, so thank you guys. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me.